Hey everybody, my name is Jeremiah Craig, and each one of these boots has a different lining on the inside. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to break down the differences between linings of these boots and the pros and cons of each. Let's get into it.
I'm just here to connect ya, and then I'll be on my way.
Thanks for coming back to the channel, guys. This video is a deep cut for those of you looking to get into the gory deets. I don't see many of you requesting information on lining, and I don't see very many searches on cowboy boot linings here, what's on the inside. But I still feel like it's a valuable piece of information for many of you to know, to help you decide on what you want in your next pair of boots or your first pair of boots, because some of you might be coming through looking for that perfect first pair, and I respect that. So we're gonna be talking about 5 to 6 different kinds of linings here, and I wanna start all the way down here for unlined boots. This is a Freebird Cosmo from my wife's collection, and as you can see, it's just unlined. It's just the rough side of the leather. That's what an unlined boot means. They just have the one piece of leather here for the top and the rough side on the inside. It's an unlined boot. You do have some leather lining around the foot in this particular pair, and we'll talk more about leather lining in a little bit. The good thing about unlined boots is that they're usually a little bit lighter because there's just less material. And they're usually a little bit cheaper too, because the company is saving costs not lining the boot. The downside to some unlined leather boots is that the less material in here can cause a boot to get a little bit floppy up here. So it might get a little flimsy on you if you don't have that extra lining on the inside. Next up, let's talk about a cloth lining, which also includes pretty much any fabric or mesh. These are an Ariat Ventec Ultra with a narrow square toe, and they have a mesh lining. Cloth linings might not breathe as well as some of the leather linings that we will look at later, and they're also the most fragile of all of the linings that we'll look at today. They have a tendency to rip if they get caught on something or just from regular wear. They tend to rip much, much sooner than what a leather lining would crack and tear. So it's a little bit cheaper to produce. So if you're looking for a cheaper boot, a lot of times they will have cloth linings like this area here. All right, now let's get into leather linings, and I have a few different examples for you because not all leather linings are the same. First up, let's take a look at pigskin leather linings. This is another popular lining for boots at a lower price point, and you can identify pigskin by looking inside and seeing those little dots here that you see scattered all around the leather. That is from the pigskin hair, and they removed it and it's left little dots here. And sometimes you also get little wrinkles as well. Pigskin leather is not as soft as the others that we'll discuss today, and it also doesn't breathe as well as bovine leathers either. This is a very popular lining for boots in a lower price point. I still like it better than the cloth linings though. And to save a little bit of extra money, sometimes companies will combine pigskin and cloth linings inside their boots, like this Ariat Roper here. You got the pigskin lined top and a cloth lined foot. So this allows them to put in their product description that it is leather lined, and technically it is leather lined, but it's not leather lined throughout. Next up, let's talk about cowhide linings. Now, there are different qualities of cowhide leather that a company might use inside their boots, but for the most part, it's better than every other lining that we've discussed so far. Cowhide leather lining looks a lot smoother than pigskin, and it's also much softer. Usually you'll find cowhide leather linings in boots over $250 on a good day. Most of the time, they're gonna be over $300. It's also used in what's called a hung leather lining. So this Chisos King Roper here has a hung leather lining, which is made separately and stitched in to cover up the seam that kind of juts out on the inside. So if we compare this Hondo boot here to this Chisos, you can see that this is a traditionally made boot without a hung leather lining, and that seam sort of juts out. And this one has the hung leather lining, which covers up that seam. So if you have a problem with a seam rubbing against your ankle, then you might want to look into a boot with a hung leather lining. Although hung leather lining boots usually weigh a little bit more than the traditionally made boots. I don't have a problem with traditionally made boots that have that seam jut out, but I know some of you do, and a hung leather lining is a good option for you. Finally, let's talk about calfskin leather lining in this Heritage Flores. Calfskin leather lining is arguably the best on this list. And I say arguably because some folks have an issue with calves being used at all for products or food, and that's a respectable stance. It's pretty hard to tell the difference between calfskin and cowhide by just looking at it, but when you touch it, you can tell immediately. It's so soft. Guys, you've never felt anything more luxurious than a calfskin lining. Oh man, guys, you're gonna have a spiritual experience if you try a boot with a calfskin lining, so be careful because they are usually in boots that are over $500. The best lining possible to many of these companies is the calfskin. All right, now if you have boots, I want you to look inside your favorite pair and let me know what the lining is down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today. Don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time through, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
There's different linings and different designs of boots from every brand. It all depends on what you want to spend on your boots that you'll wear across the land. Yeah, why don't you keep going with things inside the cowboy boot and learn about different cowboy boot insoles up here. Or I got a music video down here I think you might enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe over here, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for being here. Peace. Have a good one.